Welcome to Show Your Receipts, where we believe if you can see it, you can be it. Receipts are proof or evidence that something occurred. Our guest today is proof that Black excellence is alive and well. He is going to be sharing his receipts on how he was able to accomplish so much. I'm your host, Tony Jackson. Thank you for your time, and we are going to get started. Welcome to Show Your Receipts. We are excited. We have a fantastic guest today. Here at Show Your Receipts, we believe in order to inspire the next generation of African American business leaders, we must celebrate today's successful professionals and entrepreneurs. Today, we have an incredible guest. When you talk about professional, when you talk about entrepreneur, we have that here today. And so how do we highlight this next generation and encourage this next generation of business leaders? We interview African American professionals here, and our purpose is to be able to gain information from them through their story. And through the information that they share, we pull out details, steps, tips, books, mentors, anything that we can that helps us share that information with people who want to follow in those footsteps. We call those receipts. And so today's guest is Dr. Mercy Odueyungbo. I'm going to give you a little bit of her background. I had to edit it because it was too long. So I just had to edit it down so we can get everything.
Too long?
Yeah, you got a lot of stuff. You got a lot of accomplishments. Dr. Mercy, she was born in Nigeria, in Shagam, Nigeria, and lived there to the age of 11. She immigrated to the metropolitan Chicago area in 1995. She went to both Thornton and Thornwood High School. I don't know which one you graduated from, but we'll get to that. Graduated from Thornwood and was one of the top students there. She went to the University of Iowa and graduated with a degree in microbiology. After she left the University of Iowa, she went to medical school at Indiana University in Indianapolis, where she pursued her medical degree. After leaving Indiana University, she did her internal medicine rotation for 1 year at Northwestern University in Chicago. After leaving Northwestern University of Chicago, she went to St. Luke's Roosevelt in New York City, where she spent 4 years focusing on and majoring in dermatology. After that, she began her working career, and after a few years, she started her own practice called Lilly Dermatology in 2018. In 2021, she created a TV show called The Dr. Mercy Show. She's the star of The Dr. Mercy Show. After that, in 2022, she launched a skincare line called Lilly Dermatology, and is much, much more. But lastly, she is beautiful. She's smart. She's amazing.
Blush.
Yeah, she's
Do Black people blush?
You can tell us that too. You can know about the skin. She's an amazing wife, an amazing mother. She's my best friend, and yes, she also is my wife. I give you Dr. Mercy. Dr. Mercy, thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure to be here and
for
to
being
chat
here
with you
today. Absolutely. Let's jump right into it, because some people may be confused. I know I was in the beginning when I first met you. I didn't know exactly about the medical specialties. Can you explain to those who may not know what a dermatologist is and what they do, what a Mohs surgeon is and what they do?
So a dermatologist is a board certified physician that specializes in hair, skin, nails. And a Mohs surgeon is an extra specialization where you treat skin cancers, you do a lot of reconstruction, and you're also the pathologist that reads skin cancer slides.
Okay.
Hopefully that's summarized. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the summary of it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you for keeping it simple for me. All right, let's take it back all the way to the beginning. There has been a lot of media coverage around the success that Nigerian-born Americans have had academically and financially in the U.S. Can you tell me a little bit about your life in Nigeria and how did it prepare you for life in the U.S.?
Oh man, you're taking it way back,
go back,
way back. As long as I can remember, there's a big emphasis on education, at least in the community that I grew up in. I think in the country as a whole. One thing I remember is your age doesn't match your educational expectations. At a young age, they're teaching you algebra, French. It's basically a kid can learn as much as they're willing to learn. Hard work, determination, being a little scrappy, having grit with minimal resources. And I think that's one of the secrets to Nigerian Americans and Nigerians being successful. Work hard, there's a big emphasis on education, and we just go hard, and we like money.
Facts. Big facts. Okay.
You'll know if you ever been to a Nigerian wedding or a Nigerian party.
Absolutely. So I've also heard things like, so, you mentioned all these advantages or things about Nigeria that prepared you for coming to school here and working here in the U.S. Was it like extra advantages in Nigeria? Did you guys have great infrastructure, great like school systems?
No.
Like how?
I wouldn't say growing up you don't know it's not great till you come here. So one of the things that we don't have going for us, at least when I was growing up, is lack of electricity. So you have to think when you come home from school, you got to do your homework. We were doing homework with lanterns.
So
I don't know if you
wait
guys
a
know what a lantern is.
Wait a minute.
Pretty much like a flashlight. Because when you get home, there's no electricity. So you got to still do your homework before the end of the day.
Wow.
So imagine being able to do a full-on homework with no electricity.
Wow.
You're not really sleeping on a bed. You're sleeping on a mat on the floor. You're sharing a pot of food with 10, 15 people. So I don't know if it's the fact that we're all always on edge. If you meet Nigerians, we're all on edge. We talk loud. But it's a very interesting word, but you never know that you have it bad because we were happy.
Absolutely.
We had minimal, but we were happy.
So I didn't want to make sure we didn't brush past that point. To become an excellent student and to end up where you are today, but starting off studying with no electricity.
Yes.
That's where you began.
That's where I began.
So basically, anybody who may be going through some financial struggles that may be watching this, a young kid, you're saying that they can can do it.
Of course. You have to make the best of what you have. Never let the situation determine your outcome. You can determine your outcome, and you just have to make the best with the cards that you're dealt. And I mean, it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Now I don't know if I can study with a lantern.
Right.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Okay. So I guess my next question is, how old were you when your dream of being a doctor started? Tell me about this, how this dream came about.
I don't really know if it was a dream. Sometimes I wonder that question myself about that question, or if it was an expectation, and I happened to be that kid that it just worked out for. Because we always joke in the Nigerian community, you have 3 occupations and 3 career paths. You're either a doctor, lawyer, and engineer. Both of my parents were nurses. They would take me to the hospital with them. I would be in the OR, in the surgeries with them. So I was that kid that really loved science. I loved being in the hospital. I loved the smell of a surgical OR team. I just loved being in the hospital. So I think my parents got lucky with me. Out of the 3 professions, I happened to like one of the 3.
Absolutely. Okay. And I guess the next question I have is, why doctor? Why not lawyer? Why not engineer?
So lawyer, it's weird. I talk to patients all day. I'm just going to keep it real. Yeah. I'm like an introvert, extrovert.
Okay.
So standing in front of people and talking is not really my forte. I'm not a big person to argue or let's go get this person. That's not in my nature.
Yeah.
And with engineering, I'm too hyper. I can't really sit still long enough to tinker with stuff. I get bored very easily, and not that engineers are boring. Don't take it personal. But
she just say engineering is boring.
I needed a little bit more excitement in my day.
Absolutely. Okay. So this initial dream when you were a kid, or goal, or however it was framed for you, were your parents and like the adults in your life, your teachers, like we're talking still you're in Nigeria, were they supportive of this vision, or were they just, or what was that like?
I would say they were supportive in me being the best that I could be. When you're 5, 6, 7, you don't really know what your child is going to grow up to be. But one thing that they always supported was education. It was always education. My parents will sit with me and do my homework with our lantern. I wasn't allowed to get anything less than a certain grade. Being below average is not acceptable. So that was like the number one thing that's really emphasized in the Nigerian community. It's number one, education, and making the best of whatever you have.
Absolutely. Okay. The next question is, as a young kid, what did becoming, because you had this dream of being a doctor, and was that a financial goal? What did it mean to be a doctor? Was it like an economic thing? Was it like a status thing? Was it like I want to help people thing? What was that?
Growing up, I wasn't around a lot of people that had financial, I don't know what you would call it, success. Or to go to work, you just pray that you can keep your lights on, you can feed your kids, you have enough money to buy clothes during holidays. It was more for the love of the human body. I love sciences. My brain clicked really well. In college, a lot of people struggle with organic chemistry. I slept and dreamt in organic chemistry. My brain just worked and it just clicked really well. And I wouldn't say it came easy to me, but with hard work and persistence, it was easy for me.
Okay. So you felt like you were just...
But I wasn't the smartest growing up either. When I was younger, my teachers would tell my parents that I was dumb, like I was stupid.
Really?
So in the British system that I went, it's let's say you're in a 6th grade. It's 6A, 6B, 6C, 6D. A is when you're the smartest. B is, I don't know why they even have that classification. And I remember one time I was in 6A and the teacher told me I was too dumb and I shouldn't be in that class. So I think part of the motivation, and this happened throughout my whole childhood, it would take me forever to do my homework. I don't know if it was a nutritional deficiency, I probably was hungry. But I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the sharpest, and people always told me I wasn't this enough. I was never this enough. And mainly through intelligence. And I always said, one day I'm going to show you. One day I'm going to show you. And I think that was probably the biggest part, is proving people wrong. My parents believed in me, but a lot of teachers and people did not believe in me. I was told I was stupid, I was dumb, I wasn't beautiful enough, I wasn't this enough, I was too black enough. And I think a lot of my childhood is, I'm going to prove to people that I am this enough.
So let's talk about that. Having that chip on your shoulder.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like that's a necessity to become a doctor, or do you feel like that's just how it worked out for you?
I think for me, I can't speak for everyone. Everyone has their reasons for pursuing a certain path. But for me, at some point I started to believe that I wasn't smart. I didn't deserve to be at certain places. And it was hard because I would try to do my homework with my mom and she would get frustrated because it took me a long time to get anything done. I wasn't diagnosed with anything and she just worked with me. I wouldn't say she was patient because I would get a slap on my back. She wasn't very patient. Yeah. But they stuck it out with me. And over time, with continuous hard work and over preparing, I always had to overstudy. I always had to do extra, always going the extra mile just to prove people wrong. And at some point you do get a chip on your shoulder, and I think it's something that I'm probably in therapy for. I don't have to carry that chip on my shoulder anymore, but I'm working through it.
But you felt like that chip, it helped?
Yeah.
It helped you?
Yeah, because I felt like I had people that I had to prove wrong back home, and I don't even know where they are now.
Yeah.
If you're watching, okay.
Like you had to put that out. I don't even know
where they are now. But if you're watching,
you're like, I don't even know where they're at now.
Guess who's a doctor now?
Okay, so let's talk about, you're in the U.S. now. Tell me about high school. Tell me about middle school, high school, coming from Nigeria. Now you're in Metro Chicago. You met your other cousins. So you was in Nigeria, and then you met your other cousins in Metro Chicago. What was it like? Did they welcome you with open arms? I'm going to tell you this, because growing up in America, in 1995, as an African American, the only thing we knew about Africa was coming to America. That's all we knew. So, what was it like?
First of all, we don't run with lions. We don't climb trees in the jungle. We do have TV. It might be one TV for the whole neighborhood, but we've seen one before. It was hard. It was very hard. Like, you leave your whole family and your friends and you come to this place that's very cold. The fashion's different. We didn't really wear shorts. Back then you wear skirts and dresses. My American cousins weren't the nicest.
We weren't.
No, y'all like to roast people, especially like Africans. So it was hard. The first year or two was hard. But one thing that I could always rely on was my work ethic and, I wouldn't say intelligence, but I can do very well in school. So over time, I became that kid that would do, the people that were in the gang, I would do their homework for Laffy Taffy.
She was in Chicago area, so she
somehow, some way, I was like friends with all the gang members. I would do their tests for them, all for Laffy Taffies. Yeah. I made people became my friend because of what I could do for them with my brain or my schoolwork. So after about a year of it being rough, saying that you run with lions, you're in the jungle, you musty. We didn't wear deodorants. We didn't know y'all wear deodorant.
It was a lot of change.
It was a lot of change. Yeah. It was a lot of change. But once I figured all that out, my fashion still wasn't, the hair still wasn't right. But I was still able to like get accepted by actually doing people's work for them in a weird way. I would finish my test in 20 minutes. And then they would just slide it over, the teacher wasn't watching. And all I wanted to do was get paid in Laffy Taffy.
Okay.
That's it.
The sweet tooth.
The sweet tooth. And nothing's changed.
It doesn't change. Sweet tooth is complete. Okay. The high school you went to, you were helping people with their work, you were succeeding. Was that the kind of high school did you guys produce a lot of lawyers and doctors and professionals? What's so funny?
You said produce?
I'm trying to figure out, like, was it a heavy academic school or like college prep type of situation?
No, No, we were like one of the worst in the state of Illinois. I didn't know that until I went to college. Now you have people that can run track and play sports, and it was fun. It was a social thing to go. It was a social school, but there were a group of people that did go on to become like doctors, a few lawyers, but it wasn't many. I graduated in the top 20 of my class, but then I started off in college, I was at the bottom. I think the criteria for some of those schools, public schools, is not the same. I didn't go to a private school. My parents put you wherever they could put you, but no, it was not, no.
So what you're saying is, despite even going to one of the poorest schools in your whole entire state, you still were able to overcome that and become a doctor.
I think it's not, now that you said it, it's the same thing. Making the best out with anything that you're given. I was in the school, I didn't know, I was making the best of everything. And I think growing up, when you have so little and coming to America, it's a lot, we have a lot of opportunities here. I had light, can you imagine? I got to do my homework with some light now.
Wow.
So it's just making the best out of what I had. And I think that's been the thing my whole life.
Nuggets, you leaving those receipts. We thank you. Next question, as a first generation Nigerian, new to the U.S., what was the process like getting into college? What was the process like filling out applications and taking SAT or ACT? Did you have a lot of help in your high school? Did you have a lot of help from your parents? What was that whole process like to now go to college?
I was the first one in my family to go to college, so my parents couldn't help me. I didn't even know what was going on. The counselor, I don't even know. I just did whatever my friends were doing. If one of my friends that were in class were applying to college, I said, okay, I'm gonna apply to that college. I didn't know what was going on. The reason why I even ended up at University of Iowa, one of my friends that I ran track with was applying to University of Iowa. It was one of the few applications that you didn't have to write an essay. I'm like, man, this is easy. And then she was going there, and they gave me a scholarship. But no, I had no clue. We didn't take standardized testing. So I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was just going through the motion and doing whatever people were doing. But I didn't have any mentors, and whatever my friends did, I was doing the same.
So again, it sounds like what you're saying is you could not have a complete plan in place.
I had no plan.
But still get to where you're at now with perseverance and making the best.
Yeah. Looking back at it, I had no clue. A lot of it too is God's grace.
Absolutely.
Let's keep it real. Because I had no clue what the heck I was doing.
Yeah.
There's no reason why I'm doing
Give
get
him
members
his
homework
too. Absolutely.
and to get Laffy Taffy.
That's
Like
right.
what?
Yeah.
But a lot of it too is God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, looking back at it now, when you ask me these questions, I had no clue what the heck I was doing.
And look at you now.
No.
Next question. So now you're at Iowa. What was the adjustment like academically coming from Thornwood to Iowa? What was the adjustment like socially coming from Metro Chicago to Iowa?
Diversity-wise, whatever you think of Iowa is what Iowa is. So once you start, there's certain majors, and I don't know why this is, and certain career paths that once you choose it, you start becoming the only other or the only one in that major. So I knew I wanted to be pre-med. There was probably about 3 or 4 of us that were Black, African Americans, Africans, whatever, in the whole pre-med major. So you become friends very quickly. Unfortunately, not everyone makes it. I think by the time we graduated, it was maybe about 3 of us left, maybe only 2 got into medical school. But socially, it's weird, because growing up in Nigeria, we didn't see white people. Growing up by Harvey, South Holland, it's not that many white people. It was a shocker. I've seen them on TV growing up, but the adjustment was, we kept to our own a lot of times. And over time, we just figured out we gotta work together. But it was an interesting period, but it wasn't too bad. Because the one thing about Iowa is people are very nice. People are very nice. You still have your people that are like a little racist, but most people are nice.
Absolutely.
Most people are nice and great.
Yeah. What was the transition like academically? When you got to Iowa, did you feel like the classes that you took in high school and the teachers you had, did you feel prepared? Did you feel behind?
I felt like I was in kindergarten in my high school by the time I got to college. I'm like, what the heck did I learn? I literally went through 4 years to get to college to realize we didn't learn a darn thing. So it's like back to the story of my life, always playing catch up, trying to catch up to where I needed to, trying to make the best of where I should be. So the transition was rough. I'm not gonna lie to you. The first 6 months, I was so behind in what I should have known before I started this class.
So my question is, what got you through? Because a lot of people would give up at college, a lot of people drop out freshman year or switch majors, start dropping classes. What got you through to persevere when you were like, oh my God, I'm behind?
Deep down inside, I knew there was nothing else that I loved more or that I wanted to do. So the passion was greater than my will to quit. I had no choice. It's like I have come too far now to turn back, so I had to figure it out. Study extra, pair up with somebody. Sometimes pairing up with the white students because they be having the answers.
What do you mean the answers? Like the test?
They be having the test. They be having the test.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the disparities with some black students and white students. It took me 2 years to figure this out. And a lot of times, and I had roommates and friends, they had answers to the whole test for the semester.
Wow.
And the whole year.
Yeah.
While I'm still struggling trying to figure out how to move this atom, the molecular atom over here, and it was the same thing. So one thing I realized in Iowa, which a lot of black students don't get the opportunity, is to have knowledge and resources passed down to them. A lot of white students have that. We don't get that. And that was one thing, by the time I realized it, I'm like, my life could have been easier in college if I had this.
Right.
But I figured it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you were at Iowa, did you have any mentors, any coaches, any people who encouraged you or helped instill that belief in you that one day you too will be a doctor?
Yeah, so at University of Iowa, I don't know if they're still called the same name. It's a group of black, minority, Hispanic, whatever, that were interested in medicine or some kind of science engineering. So we had a group, and that was my group. We studied together, we went out together, we ate together, and we motivated each other when things were hard. And we did have a lot of people cheering us on, seeing other black doctors on campus, having people invested in you because they knew you wanted to do medicine. So there was a good group. There was a good group that we stuck together.
Also, any one individual person that you want to shout out?
I do remember, I think it was my second or third year, once I was towards the sciences part by the hospital, was a particular lady, I always mess up the name, Dungy.
Dungy, yeah, Dungy.
Coach Dungy's brother was a physician at University of Iowa, and his wife had some kind of professional leadership title at the university. We met in the lunchroom, we just clicked, and she was one that was very instrumental in me staying the course, not giving up, and seeing what black professionals look like.
Absolutely.
Because before then, I didn't really see like black professions at the level that I wanted to be in America.
Absolutely.
Now in Nigeria, everyone's black doctor, but being a black doctor in Nigeria, that doesn't mean anything. It's just you chose a path. There was, I wouldn't say there's no reward, but it was a lot of us. It's a lot of us.
And when she says Dungy, she's talking about Tony Dungy. He was a former NFL coach, and his brother's wife.
Yep.
So shout out to you, Miss Dungy. The work you did, the time you put in worked.
Yeah, she was great.
This is a product of your
I think
encouragement.
She came to our graduation too. She was great. I lost contact with her, but we would have lunch here and there. Yeah. But she was great.
Awesome. Okay. And so now let's talk about you finishing up Iowa and going to medical school. What was that experience like? So you're leaving Iowa City. You're going now to Indianapolis. You're in Indiana now, Indianapolis. What was the medical school process like? How was it different than undergrad? What was it like?
So in order to go to medical school, you have to take your MCAT. And I don't know if we'll touch on it, test taking. And I think historically, minority students don't do as well in standardized testing, and I happen to be one of those. I didn't grow up doing standardized testing. And I think I took my MCAT either 2 or 3 times just to get a good enough score to get into. Now, if you gave me like a whole semester of classes, I can ace those. But if you gave me a standardized test, I was average. I didn't grow up taking them.
So hold on, wait a minute. Let's touch on that point. So you're saying you could actually take the MCAT, not get the score that you want.
Just get in there.
But you could not get a good score and retake it again. So what you're basically saying is the perseverance of it.
I squoze in.
You squoze in.
I squoze into medical school. Because I knew if I could squoze myself in, I can do the work.
Exactly.
So just whatever it was, if the bare minimum was like 24, 25, I was right there. I was like, that's what I got. Squozed in.
Okay. Wow. That's another key point to show that you don't, because a lot of times we have a stereotype on what a doctor is. They aced everything. They were at the top of every class.
I sucked at standardized testing. I barely, almost even ACT I had to take 2 or 3 times just to get a good enough score to get into college. MCAT I had to take 2 or 3 times to get enough score to get into medical school. But then after that, I figured it out.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay. What mistake did you make during the process of becoming a dermatologist that if you had to go back and talk to your your younger self and advise them to take another path, what mistake was that and what advice would you give to yourself?
That's a good question. I was too serious. And I wish I had probably had a little bit more fun in my 20s and 30s. I was very type A, OCD. The only thing I cared about was going into being a physician. And I think I gave myself a stomach ulcer. I wasn't the healthiest person. And as I'm older, what was all that for? I could have had a little bit more fun. And one thing I've realized, especially with a lot of things that have happened in life experiences, it's never as hard as it seems, and it's never as hard as we're making it seem. And just relaxing a little bit. It's gonna be okay. I wish I could have told myself it's going to be all right. During that time, it was never gonna be all right. Nothing was all right. Everything was bad. Everything was horrible. Everything was like, I got one thing wrong. It's gonna be okay. Yeah. It's gonna be okay. It's all gonna work out. It might not be the way you expect it to work out, but it's going to work out.
Okay. I did realize I missed a question on in your residency. Tell me a little bit about your residency, because I've heard stories about residency. You're in a hospital for days, you can't shower, and people are yelling and screaming at you, and your boss. Is that real? Is that really true? Did that really happen?
Residency for me was 13 years ago. Then it was real. A lot of rules and regulations have changed. I think if you talk to a lot of physicians, mental health wasn't really touched upon, depression. We would be in the hospital for 3-4 days. There's no way you can take care of a patient. Mountain Dew. I kept awake with Mountain Dew. You don't have days off. You could go 30 days without a days off. There wasn't as much rules and regulations. It's not a great, they need to fix it. Let's put it that way. They need to make a lot of changes to fix it if we're going to raise the next generation of physicians that are going to want to stay in medicine.
Absolutely.
A lot of physicians now have depression, high suicidal rate, alcohol use. The way we were treated in internship, it's not the right way to be able to have longevity in this field.
Absolutely. So you're saying they made changes?
That's what I've heard. But
okay.
I think there's hours, like you can only work a certain amount of hours. You have to go home and sleep. I don't know.
Absolutely.
I kept that state out of it.
So how did you overcome
Mountain Dew?
But besides the Mountain Dew, it had to be more than Mountain Dew. Like, how did you mentally stay locked in? How did you mentally have the will to keep going? Working 30 days in a row, being in the hospital for 2 days, 3 days straight. Like, what was your mindset? Like, how are you able to keep going?
First of all, one thing I've heard, the human body is amazing. The human body will adjust to what it needs to adjust to. Once you tell your body, this is what I need to do for a certain amount of time, it can do it. It's like working out. So it just does it. Your page is beeping every 5 seconds, even if you try to sleep. We had call rooms, never saw a call room. The human body can do more than we can imagine. And I don't know, I think just God and knowing that you have an end goal in mind, in sight. I'm bad with sayings. End goal in sight, end goal in mind, whatever. Yeah. So knowing that I had to do this portion to get to this portion. So do what you have to do.
Nope.
Don't complain, get the job done, and move on.
Absolutely. Okay.
That's also the Nigerian. Don't complain. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about now once you get on the other side of things. Oh, no. Before we even get into that, what was residency like? What was being in New York City like? So you go from Indiana, Chicago, now you're in New York City. What was that like? What was that experience like doing dermatology as a dermatology resident in New York City?
So the residency at that time was called St. Luke's Roosevelt. Now it's Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai's brought up all these hospitals. I loved residency. One of the reasons why I trained in New York, I knew that if I trained in New York, there's nowhere in the world I couldn't go to. Because if you can survive in New York like this, you can survive anywhere. And I loved residency. It's like you take this small group of people that are brilliant, like the smartest group, and you guys just work hard, you grind it out. The amount of knowledge that you have to know to be a dermatologist is insane, because every internal disease is connected on the outside. So it's not just learning the skin, you're also learning about what's going on internally. And I had a great group of friends and co-residents that are now my lifelong friends, and it was hard, but we had a blast.
Okay.
We had a blast.
That's awesome. Okay. And so now let's talk about after the goal is accomplished.
Is the goal ever accomplished?
The goal of becoming this dermatologist.
Okay.
You know, you finish residency. You go on to do an extra year of a fellowship to specialize in Mohs surgery.
That was hard.
That was tough.
That was hard.
You want to talk about that?
It was like being an internship again. Because the community is very small, we'll move on.
Okay. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that. It was
We'll leave
hard.
it at that.
But on top of it being hard, I didn't realize that I was also being prepared to be able to do anything that came towards me, anything
Absolutely.
that presented itself, which is the Dr. Mercy show and all these crazy things that I do. It was doing that hardship, and it was a lot of tears. I wanted to quit a lot during fellowship. So fellowship is 1 or 2 years after the derm residency. I wanted to quit. I remember I would call my friends. I said, I can't do this. This is hard. Why am I doing this? And I just kept going. My mom was sick at the time. She was diagnosed with cancer. It was just a rough time. And it was also survival again. But it made me who I am now. And there's not a whole lot that a patient can bring to me that I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's do it.
Yeah.
But it was rough. It wasn't a walk in the park.
And you ain't saying no names.
We ain't saying no names.
Okay. So now you become this doctor. I did a little bit of research. I looked up, and according to salary.com,
Which salary is this?
salary.com.
Interesting.
According to salary.com, dermatologists on average make between $322,400 and $437,300 a year. Is this accurate? Does this sound about right?
Excuse me. It's not 100% wrong. So the great thing about dermatology is you can work as much as you want or as little as you want. For most people working 4 or 5 days a week, it's probably close, but there are also a lot of people, depending on what city you live in, if you work for a hospital, if you have your own private practice, if you're working in a group, it varies. I don't know, like, how do you come up with 437 points? I don't know. I don't know what everyone is making. I don't know, you don't tell people don't talk about their salaries, but do I know people that make that? Yes. I know people that make way less, and I know people that make way more.
Yeah. So basically saying dermatologists, they're not broke.
When you count your med school loans, see, that's one thing people
Let's talk
forget
about that. Let's talk
the med
about
school
it.
loans.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
You could buy 3 houses with as much loans as I had. You have the loans, but then interest compounds. So you take out your loans, but you don't have to pay till after your residency. That could be like 6-7 years later. So yes, you make whatever, but you have a lot of loans you have to pay off. So it's like you're starting at negative account when you first finish residency and you're starting your career. Then you got to buy a house. So dermatologists aren't broke, but anyone in medicine knows you carry a large amount of student debt.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that. Actually, we're going to start from young and old, because what I want to do now is to wrap up the last few questions here. I wanted you to give advice to someone who's in different stages of the process of becoming a dermatologist.
It's probably going to be the same. Okay.
But let's start. You talk a high schooler. What are you saying to a high schooler who says, I want to become a dermatologist? What do they need to do? What focus do they need to have? What are the steps they need to be taking?
Just get good grades. It's high school, for God's sake. You're going to work hard. So I'm not saying don't work hard, get good grades. Get very good at studying, being able to sit still for long periods of time. And also have some fun. Stay focused. Don't get in trouble. Everything's online now. You know, your records does follow you. People can pull you up now. Don't get in trouble. Don't get drunk. Don't get pulled over. Don't whatever. Have fun and work hard, but don't stress about it.
Okay. What advice would you give a college student who says, man, I want to be a dermatologist? What's the college student doing?
So then the advice is now backwards. Don't have too much fun. You have to start buckling down.
Yeah.
You want to get your highest GPAs you can get. You want to start volunteering in the hospital. You want to start doing some sciencey group or something. You want to start maybe working on the floor or shadowing someone. And a dermatologist in your community that you can spend a few hours a week with them, and just stay focused. This is not the time to go out every single night or every weekend. You can't do that.
Absolutely.
And I know I sound mean, but you got to get serious, because that's when you take your MCAT. And the MCAT gets you into the great medical school, and then from there it just keeps going.
Absolutely. Okay. What advice would you give the
medical student? Work hard, get a great step 1 score. Your step 1 score, I think this is how it still is. Your step 1 score determines what kind of doctor you can be. A lot of people don't tell you that. Whatever score you get pretty much can place you wherever. So I can't remember what I got, but he put me in a place that I can pretty much choose any career in medicine and get in. So you don't want to
So you got a pretty high step 1 score.
You don't want to limit the kind of whatever field you want. So get a great step 1 score. Find some doctors that will be willing to write you letters for your med school application. Go back and volunteer in the hospital. This is time to buckle down. But you still want to have some fun and personal mental time. Have fun with your family. Go out with friends a few times a month. You want to be serious.
Okay. And then lastly, the resident, somebody who's in residency. what advice are you giving them?
Learn everything that they tell you to learn, because one day a patient with that disease will show up.
Yeah.
You're like,
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
But you're like, man, I'm never going to see that. Oh, you will see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Learn to see as many patients as you can. Read the book. We know the book Bologna and Andrews. Read them over and over, 2, 3, 4 times, front to cover. Know every disease, know every presentation, know everything. Because when you go out on your own, there will be a patient that you read about that you were like, I don't need to know that, and they will show up. They will come.
Awesome. Okay, and just to wrap it up, just a quick tidbits that we can get from you. Some young person or somebody who wants to follow in your footsteps who's watching this, what books did you read that helped you along the way, that encouraged you, that inspired you, when you maybe had not enough belief or doubt?
Number one, pray. The Bible is the number one. Every challenge that we've ever had in life, someone else in the Bible has gone through worse challenge.
That's right. That's right.
Number two, Magic of Thinking Big. That was a favorite in medical school. Every time I read that book, I had my best grades that semester. It just kept me focused. It put the most important things first. It helped me prioritize. And then the last one that I read in residency, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. Remember I told you, like, I was like super type A. I was giving myself an ulcer. And that book just put things into perspective for me. We're only here for a short time in life. You want to leave your mark, and you want to be kind, and you want to be nice, but you also want to be kind to yourself, and you want to be good to yourself. And that's one thing I'm learning now, because I wasn't good to myself in my younger years. And I wish someone would have told me to just chill.
Absolutely. That is all my questions, Dr. Mercy. First, I want to say thank you for taking the time to share. Where can people find you? Do you want to share your social media information?
So on Instagram is dr.mercyod, and on Facebook it's Lilly Dermatology, Lily. I'm very good at responding back, so if you have any questions about anything, if you want to shadow, if you can get up here in Michigan, I'm willing to have you shadow me in my practice, answer any questions that you guys might have.
That's huge. If you're watching this and you're a young person who wants to follow in those footsteps, reach out to us and you can get connected with Dr. Mercy.
Yes.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.